Hi, everyone. Before the episode begins, I just want to remind you to follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Marlene the Plant Lady and YouTube, Everything Gardening with Marlene Simon. And remember, please, please, please rate and review on iTunes and Spotify. That just helps the podcast get noticed by more people, and then more people will become better gardeners. And that's what we all want. So enjoy the episode.
Look at that plant. I want you to know that everything was grown in my garden. Don't touch that plant!
Is it poisonous?
She'll become part of the plant.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Flower Power Garden Hour. I'm your host, Marlene, and tonight we're going to talk about what to do with your plants, well, your holiday plants, after the holidays are over. No, don't throw them away. No, don't put them in the compost bin. So with me are two people who are going to help us, and that is Sean Shoemaker. You might have remembered him if you listened to the most recent Orchid episode, and Gianluca Bacci. If you listen to the two-parter on succulents, you'll recognize his voice as well. They're also known as two student workers at the conservatory. They're shaking their heads. No. Sean, I consider you the orchid and carnivorous plant manager. And Gianluca, I consider you just annoying.
I wholeheartedly agree with this statement.
Just kidding. You've done wonders with our succulent collection. So I wanted to do this episode, and I thought, I could just do it with Joe, but but why? When I, might as well do it to plant lovers, so that way, every 5 seconds, Joe's not stopping me and asking me questions. You guys just will have a conversation.
Yeah.
So Sean, I know when I told you, let's do this one, you're like, I grow orchids and carnivorous plants. What the heck am I going to know? But you grow them very well, and you know stuff. And Gianluca just thinks he knows everything. Okay, I won't make fun of you the whole time, Gianluca. You're such a good sport. That's what we do. Just most of the time. Okay, so there are just like a handful of plants that are considered like holiday plants. Like you would never just say, I'm going to go to the nursery and buy these plants. Well, with one exception, actually. I think the cyclamen.
Yeah.
But we're going to start with the most popular. And what is that, guys? What do you think?
Angraecum sesquipedale.
Poinsettia.
And yeah, that is an orchid. Yes. So poinsettia.
Yeah.
But what is its true name, Gianluca?
Euphorbia. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Euphorbia pulcherrima.
Okay. And euphorbia is the Euphorbiaceae family,
Yes.
and it's a huge succulent group.
Yes, it has an enormous number of succulent plants. They're ubiquitous to the entire planet, so every continent has euphorbias except for Antarctica. And they are distinguished by a synapomorphy called a cyathea, which is like a unique trait to that group of plants, Euphorbiaceae.
Okay, just you got to expand on that, though.
Oh, yeah.
You can't just leave it at that.
Yeah, a cyathea is every time I think about a way to explain it, I think of like even a more complicated way to explain it.
Oh,
but
Lord.
Technically speaking, it is a dicasial branching inflorescence with a female flower on the center node and male flowers on the axial or lateral nodes. But it's essentially you have a female flower with male flowers around it.
Okay.
And it's really condensed, so the entire thing looks like a single flower, but it's actually a cluster of flowers called a cyathea.
And all euphorbias have that.
Yes, all euphorbias have that.
And I think it's when people see a spiny cactus and then they'll see a spiny euphorbia, they'll actually think those are related. Then you put a poinsettia next to it and there's like, well, that can't be related at all. But in fact, the spiny euphorbia is related to the leafy poinsettia.
Yeah. One interesting thing, the flower structure of plants are conserved, evolutionarily speaking. So like, if you look at a plant, the way to distinguish whether a plant's related or not generally is by flower morphology. All families basically have very distinctive flower morphologies, not the actual structure of the plant or stem structure.
Exactly. So the flowers are very similar, but most people, okay, so Sean, when most people look at a poinsettia, what do they think the flowers are, or the petals?
They think they're petals, but they're bracts. which
Okay,
is
what is a bract?
It's a kind of a reduced it's a floral structure, right? I mean, a leaf structure.
It's a modified leaf.
structure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are
yeah.
orchids with that, right? A lot of orchids have bracts. Am I wrong?
No.
Okay,
Orchids
it's
are-
sepals.
They have
They have
sepals,
sepals
yeah.
that
yeah,
are
they have
okay.
petaloid
Yeah.
sepals.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of plants that utilize different parts of the plants
Yeah.
to act as petals
Yeah.
to aid in attraction.
So on a poinsettia,
Mhm.
the colorful leaves that you see, or the things people say are the flowers,
Yeah.
they're actually just colorful leaves, bracts,
Mhm.
and they only form when they're grown in darkness. Under normal circumstances, they stay green. And then in the center, you'll see those little yellow flowers, quote
Yeah.
unquote. Those are the actual cyathea, which in themselves are actually clusters of flowers.
So if they didn't have the red bracts, it'd be quite a boring
Yes.
plant.
Which is kind of how it looks in nature because they don't
Yeah.
actually produce.
So I think it was, and I forget, I think it was like the 1820s or whenever like poinsettias.
Yeah.
like,
I don't know
became
if I
in
heard
vogue.
this. I heard this once. I don't
Uh-huh.
know if it's true. I've never fact checked it.
Okay.
But someone told me poinsettias became a Christmas thing in the Americas or in the United States because the president of Mexico brought a poinsettia as a gift to the U.S. president during Christmas. Like they were meeting around December, and it was like the gift.
I think I heard that too.
he brought,
I don't know if that was from
and-
Wikipedia or I heard that
Yeah.
somewhere, but that might be. And I know in San Diego is a huge, actually where I used to live in Vista, is a huge area for growing poinsettias. So I think most people get a poinsettia, and they put it inside the house. So let's talk a little bit about how to care for it when it's in the house. So or I guess we should start back to what is its native habitat and what would it prefer? Because then you think, okay, it's euphorbia. It's not a succulent. Do I treat it like a succulent?
Well,
no,
it's
a leafy
It's
plant.
leafy, but it can handle pretty dry conditions. They are native to Mexico, mid-elevation type plants,
Mhm.
and they grow as giant shrubs, like pretty big
They get
shrubs.
tall.
They get really tall, and they're not necessarily that pretty in the wild. They're
No.
kind of lanky.
Mhm.
The only reason they're so squat is they spray them with bonsai, which is a
Growth
plant growth hormone.
hormone. Growth hormone, yeah.
Yeah.
Because we want that small, compact, and
Yeah.
So yeah, in the wild, you expect them. They're from parts of Mexico that actually do not get below 50 degrees.
No, they cannot handle.
No. So
cold
if you get a
weather.
poinsettia, do not leave it. Actually, though, I have two outside right now in pots, and it's gotten down to 23, but they must be right up against a warm spot, and they're
yeah.
fine. But ideally, temperatures won't get below 50. So inside, every time someone has like a gift plant or a plant, I always say, first of all, in the wintertime, keep it away from direct heater vents because that's just going to dry a plant out really fast. Two, when you're watering it, take off that sleeve. If you just water it, the water's just going to catch in
Yeah,
that
it just-
decorative sleeve.
Pulls up and then the plant's roots rot, and you might think that it's wilting from getting too dry, but it's actually its roots have just rotted, so it can't take up any moisture, and then it looks like it's wilting.
Yeah,
so.
and then people add more water because
Yeah.
most people overwater their plants.
Yeah.
And another thing is when they grow them, probably start right off with cuttings. They stick
Yes.
them in there, and so the soil that they use is it's cheap. It holds a lot of moisture, so in transport, and then it's also good for starting cuttings. Is just a heavy peat.
Yes.
Which
Another problem with that is once it does dry out, it becomes totally hydrophobic, so it's really hard to re-wet.
yeah, and then it'll shrink from the sides, and then when you say, "Oh, water until water flows out the bottom,"
Yeah.
what the water does is it just goes off to the side, down to the sides, because it's like a sponge; it shrinks away.
So whenever you have a plant from like Home Depot or some sort of place you usually buy poinsettias from, always make sure to check when you're watering it to see if the peat has actually become hydrophobic and condensed, because if it has, you're not actually watering it. And
Yeah.
the way to rehydrate it is to put it in a bucket and like soak it, and then you'll see the peat moss expands again.
yeah, not freezing cold water.
No, just like tap water is
Yeah.
fine. But
And so if you get one though, you don't need to do this right away. Just
No.
enjoy it, but
Yeah,
you do need to make sure that it's not drying out and stuff. Something I do want to touch upon though is there is that myth, and I don't think it's necessarily a myth because we know something about this family, but years ago it's like, oh, poinsettias are so poisonous. But there is something about the euphorbia in the latex sap.
yes, they are technically poisonous.
Mm-hmm.
They have Laticifers, which are glands that produce latex in plants. All euphorbias have them. All euphorbias are poisonous to some degree. But as far as euphorbias go, poinsettias are not very poisonous.
Yeah, but I always say, like, would you let your cat eat it, Sean?
No.
No, I'd let Joe eat it. But Sean, have you been around Gianluca and I when we've inoculated ourselves with euphorbia sap?
I have. You guys are insane.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll test out all the different euphorbias we have at the conservatory and see which ones give us reactions.
Yeah, because I've had various reactions where I couldn't wear my contacts for a full month. I know another one. I've had giant blisters.
So latex itself, of course, some people have latex allergies, and that will cause a rash. But to most people, the latex doesn't actually do anything to your skin. It's other metabolites in the sap, which euphorbias have tons of.
Yes.
The only thing is if you eat latex, it is it's a diuretic. That's the word I was looking for.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Yeah. So every time we try to like cause a reaction, and don't do this at home. This is just
no,
us.
definitely
I mean,
don't. We're kind of insane plant people.
Yeah, exactly. And we have high pain tolerance too,
Yes.
we must say. Joe, don't look at me like that. I do. But yeah, you definitely don't. If you see an animal nibbling on the poinsettia or your kid, just you don't
Stop it.
Yeah, stop it. It's so I just wanted to get that out there that it's not the most toxic, but it definitely has toxins.
If you see someone eating a poinsettia or some animal, it's probably not going to kill them if they just ate a little bit. It just might give them bad
Exactly.
diarrhea.
And sometimes in the sap may cause other people to react differently.
Yes,
Some
especially
people
if
may
you have
react.
like a latex allergy.
Exactly. So we just wanted to clarify that. Okay, so after the holidays are done and you have this poinsettia, and Gianluca, I'll ask you because when I've watered your plants inside your house, which you have very few leafy plants because you're a succulent grower, you do have a poinsettia inside your house.
Yes, I do.
Which is the
It's-
most random thing. I'm
it
like,
is.
why does he have a poinsettia inside his house?
It's because my mom used to buy poinsettias,
Mm-hmm.
and one day I was just like, I am not going to let this thing die and
Okay.
go into the
There you
garbage.
go. Yep.
I'm going to grow it. And it's euphorbia, so I have to love it because I love so many other euphorbias. Euphorbia is my favorite genus of plant.
We'll remember that when he changes it next week, Sean.
I love pseudolithos.
That's like, yeah, I love euphorbias.
Mm-hmm.
But once you have it,
Uh-huh.
and if you want to keep it going, first of all, I would recommend always transplant it into a better media.
Yes,
a
that's the
well-draining
first thing.
media.
Yeah.
I always sing the praises of pumice.
Mm-hmm.
A good pumice, and then like some sort of organic with it too, or some other inorganic, just to make sure there's lots of drainage.
What I say is just like a standard potting soil, but
Yeah.
if you could add extra pumice to it, it's
Yeah.
going to help with the drainage because they grow on slopes, and which is quick draining.
Yes. And then they'll quickly lose their compact shape because they're not supposed to grow like that. That's
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
because of the bonsai hormone they spray on them during production. So they'll get long, lanky. You can trim them back. They branch pretty well. I've actually seen some people bonsai them, like, proper wire them up and bonsai them. And now they won't bloom or produce those red leaves unless you do something a little bit weird, which is put them in total darkness, like around October, and then just like leave them in your closet. And during that time, they will produce red leaves, and you can bring them out for December.
Yeah. So you have to think ahead.
Yeah.
And usually what you want to do is prune them down because they
Yes.
might be a little lanky.
Lanky.
And you can grow them. So you're growing them inside, and you have actually a big skylight in your entryway.
Yes.
And so that's allowing a lot of light. But most of the time, it's not enough light inside. So what you could do is move it out spring when night temperatures warm up above 50.
Yep.
Afternoon shade is best in a really hot climate. And then bring it inside when night temperatures are dropping below 50. You could cut it down again. But by the time night temperatures are dropping down 50, you're probably going to have to put it in the dark if you want it. But you don't have to. You don't have to make the leaves turn red.
No, it's a
But
kind of pretty plant as it is.
it might be a fun challenge,
Yeah.
though.
Yeah, it is.
So yeah, they are, I knew people who grew them in like San Jose, I think is the furthest north I've seen a good specimen, where it was like against a house, and it was about 6 feet tall.
Yeah.
And,
People grew them outside in SoCal, like in Santa Barbara.
we're
and
not talking about your
Ventura.
spoiled climate of SoCal, okay? Of course.
Definitely doable.
Well, that's like tropics.
Yeah, it is.
Of course. Did you ever see any red Because I mean,
No,
yeah,
No, they don't do it unless they're in total darkness.
which is so weird. Like, how was that even discovered?
Yeah, no, I've never looked into that. I've wondered about it though.
You know what?
so-
I bet someone just like was packing and they left like their plant in a box when they
Yeah.
were moving, and then
Under a bench or something
Yeah.
in a greenhouse.
Exactly.
Like, whoops.
wow, look what happened there when there was absolutely no light coming in. Wow, okay. And so, yeah, which makes you wonder what other plants you could trick into doing strange things. Because no other euphorbias really have. I mean, there are other euphorbias with a red pigment. And it's the anthocyanins. I mean, that's
Yes,
a
it
strong
is.
anthocyanin.
It's a very strong anthocyanin.
Very strong anthocyanin. And you see all these weird hybrids.
Anthocyanins are red pigmentations
yeah.
in plants.
And I just wonder if I'm assuming the pink hybrids, the variegated hybrids, I wonder if they're going to come true. And
I don't know. I know they use virus transfection
yeah.
to cause some of that marbling.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it is just a single exposure, oh, these leaves are now going to have that weird marbling, and then when it comes back the next year it's
Yeah.
going to be, or if it actually stays in the meristematic tissue.
Yeah, I'm wondering
Um,
because I don't know of any, sadly, I don't know of many people who actually do this to get theirs.
Yes.
I mean, who's thinking of Christmas time at like in October?
Well, all the people who grow these things.
Well,
but-
yes, I'm talking about people who've bought them previously and
yeah.
are like, oh, I got to go put my poinsettia in the closet now. They're sort of pest free, though. I imagine mealybugs would be the
They'd
only
get
pest.
mealies
Yeah,
occasionally.
mealybugs. Yeah, and then you could just blast them off with a hose. So they're actually relatively easy to grow
Oh, very easy.
as long as you're not requiring them to turn red again. But it's doable.
Yeah.
You just need to prune it down.
They also don't need terribly much water.
That's
sort of-
true.
They're sort of
yeah.
intermediate level water plants
Mhm. Yeah.
because once again, slopes, they're from like semi-deciduous type
Yeah.
areas,
Yeah.
not super tropical.
Yeah, and when we say lanky, they're going to lose their lower leaf. So you're going to end
Yes.
up with like just bare stems.
Stems.
So the reason why your plant is not going to look like the poinsettia, as you were saying, it's growth hormones, it's very strong light, and it's just growing in the conditions to get them it's the ultimate gift plant.
Yes.
No one goes to a nursery and buys a poinsettia. It's just like when you see bromeliads, they're different than when you buy them as a gift plant. So, but yeah, I mean, we don't want to see them end up in the compost.
Waste, yeah.
Yeah, even though mine do. I usually buy them for like TV segments, and then I'm like, okay, into the barn. Oh, you're still alive, even though I got down to 23 the other day. All right, let's move on because that is like, but one that's gaining a lot of popularity, but for some reason I haven't seen, I think COVID. So I remember before COVID for a few years, there were crazy amounts of different poinsettias, like just
Yes.
like purple ones, various purples, pinks. You remember that?
Yeah, I do.
And then now it seems like
It's like
after
back to the
COVID, we're
normal.
just back to
Back to
normal. Yeah. So I think it was like, well, no one was buying them before. Let's just get people going. Similar, it's hard to find a Christmas cactus.
Yeah.
I have seen them, but they're small and most of them aren't in bloom. So I'm just wondering if some nurseries missed the mark on getting
Yeah.
them to
So
bloom.
the Christmas cactus is Schellenbergia burgessii.
Yeah. Yes.
yeah.
Yes, that is correct. Because the one we usually grow as a Christmas cactus is actually truncata.
Yeah, truncata.
Truncata. And that one's sold as a Christmas cactus.
Yes, but it has the long
Pointy things.
pointy,
I say it looks like a kitty cat.
Yeah.
So let's go. So okay.
and
so
that's technically like the common names, like the Thanksgiving cactus.
yes.
But cares. It's
Okay.
just
So let's
another
step
cactus
back.
that blooms in the winter.
So when we say Christmas cactus, it is a true cactus. It is in the
Yes.
Cactaceae family. So what is different about it? I mean, so it's a tropical cactus.
Yes, it's a tropical cactus.
It's from Brazil.
It's from Brazil. It's an epiphyte.
Okay, Sean, this is your area, right? Because what was 80% of orchids?
70-ish% of orchids
Oh,
are
so sorry.
epiphytic.
70% of orchids are epiphytic. And what does that mean?
It means that they're growing attached. Usually, epiphytic refers to something growing like attached to a tree, and then it's kind of synonymous with. People use it synonymously with with lithophytic, which is growing on a rock. But it's just any plant that's growing
Outside of soil.
Yeah, outside of soil, like not in a media, attached to something else.
And it's not a parasite because I think as
Yeah,
soon
no,
as
it's
people
not a
say it's growing
parasite.
up in a tree, they think mistletoe, which is another holiday plant. But
that's parasitic.
It's,
so
a
why
whole
grow?
parasite.
Why grow as an epiphyte?
What do you mean? What's the benefit of it? So, especially in the tropics, this holds true. Light down towards the forest floor is in kind of scarce. It's a scarce resource. So there's plenty of plants who put a lot of energy into scrambling as soon as they germinate, and they scramble up another tree or something like that, and then make their leaves where there's light available higher up.
A lot of aeroids are like that, vining aeroids.
Yeah,
that
they just
sprout on the
scramble
bottom
as
and
fast as they can.
But then a lot of them could be seed deposited by birds, right?
Yes.
Where they just get stuck to the side.
Yeah.
So the benefit of being an epiphyte is your seed starts already, up in the
In the
canopy,
trees.
attached to a tree, and then it doesn't actually like form a haustoria and like penetrate into the tree tissue. It just grows around it. So it sticks its roots into the bark or the moss that's attached to the tree.
Haustoria are parasitic roots on parasitic plants, quote unquote roots.
Yeah,
They're not true roots,
Yeah.
but
and
they
get into the tree
yeah.
tissue
So,
itself.
So I think when people think of it, they don't realize like up in the canopies of trees, there's a lot of debris.
Yeah.
lots of debris.
There's a lot of debris. So it's almost like a soil, but that's why we grow orchids in bark or sphagnum moss, because it's mimicking just a light, like organic mixture.
Right.
So that's where they get their nutrients from,
Yeah, or in the tropics it rains a lot.
Yeah.
So there's a constant flow of water bringing things from higher up
Yeah.
down into that leaf litter, and just nutrients flow through it, and they are able to obtain it through that.
Yeah, I think of all the bird poo on the leaves up above.
Exactly,
It's
or just
flushing the, or just,
things that die in there and fall down, and
yeah, it's like compost tea.
Mhm.
Yeah, you have to put it in like terms of, oh yes, compost tea. Yeah. Okay, so the Christmas cactus is growing as an epiphyte because it's from Brazil in the tropics there. So it's just planted by a bird or whatever, and then it's starting to grow.
Pseudotropics,
Semi, because it's
Semi-tropic.
not. Yeah, you won't find them in wet areas.
Yeah.
There's varying degrees of where epiphytes live. So it's a true cactus. So when we see what looks like quote leaves, those are not leaves.
No, they're stems.
They're stems.
Yeah, they do not have true leaves. Well, they do, but they're the spines, which Schlumbergia, Hatoria, all the epiphytic cacti generally have extremely reduced spines anyways.
Yeah.
So some people don't even realize they're there, but they're there. If you look at the nodes on the stem, you'll see little tiny tufts of glaucids because they are puntioids.
Okay. Yeah, Sean, did you know that? They're a puntioid.
Of course.
Duh. Okay, so say you go and buy a Christmas cactus. What I've noticed with having them, is once again, they're planted in the heavy peat. Even though
Yeah.
they're a cactus, even though it's an epiphyte, they're still in the peat because it's easy transport.
Yeah.
They get them out. But also, when you buy one plant, you're not buying just one plant. They start, so
But like, 10,
5 or,
yeah.
it depends on how big of a
The
pot.
pot, yeah,
If you
but
buy a big pot and you're like, wow, look at the size of this Christmas
it's
cactus,
just a whole bunch of cuttings. So
and they
stuff
could
in the
live
pot.
like that for a
Yes.
while, but if you want more bang for your buck, you could just
Separate
divide
them
them.
out,
Yeah. So that's what they do, is they get it just started with cuttings right into the peat moss. So okay, so you get a Christmas cactus, you want to enjoy it for the holidays, you keep it inside. Where would you recommend people growing it inside? How?
So I would recommend a bright like spot.
Mm-hmm.
East facing, south facing window, not in the summer. That would
Yeah,
be
yeah,
too
yeah.
hot. That would burn. But in the winter, basically the brightest spot you can find. Because once again, they're epiphytes. They
Mhm.
grow high up in the trees where they get lots of
Mhm.
light. And they don't need a terrible amount of water.
Mm-mm.
They are, once again, cacti. Even though they are like semi-tropical epiphytes. You have to think, semi-tropical means it gets like a decent amount of water. But that's if you're in the ground. These are semi-tropical epiphytes.
Exactly.
So they're actually very drought tolerant. Most epiphytes are in some ways drought tolerant, except for the ones that grow in like the literal wettest climates in the world, like some of the cloud forest plants. But most epiphytes, it's like orchids. A lot of orchids have like succulent leaves or succulent
And large
stems.
pseudobulbs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
for
they
storage. Yeah, because if it
semi-epiphytic
doesn't rain for
yeah.
3 days, they don't have that wet soil as a reserve.
Yeah.
They
As
are
an
gonna
epiphyte,
die.
3 days without rain is a drought.
Yes.
Like, they
Yeah.
totally dry
And the
out.
water is in very short supply too. As soon as it stops raining, it's not like there's soil to hold
Yeah.
on to.
No,
It just
it's-
flows away.
Yeah. Yeah. And very minimal root systems well, I mean, some orchids get up pretty big. We're not talking
Yes.
orchids, but I'm just trying to put it in layman's terms for you, Sean, as far as epiphytes. But just enough roots to hold it, anchor it to the tree so it doesn't fall off, and then enough to maybe gather some nutrients and water in any of the duff that it's growing in. So once again, most people kill their plants by overwatering. And same thing goes with that poinsettia. Don't let that peat moss get so dry that it separates from the side and you're really not watering it where you think you are. But don't keep it so sopping wet that it's going to rot. Because the same thing happens. It looks almost like it's...
With the Schellenbergia or the Christmas cactus, I would say it's really hard to actually keep them alive in the peat moss solution that they give you. Because, in the nursery, they have it perfectly calculated. It's like they spray it at this time and let it go dry for this amount of time. It's a very regimented thing.
Yes. Yeah.
At home, I would recommend, if you want to keep this alive longer through the holiday, plant it into cactus mix or like pumice and sphagnum moss mix, or even like a mix of orchid bark and pumice and other stuff, but a very loose mix because they are epiphytes, and then you water them like once a week once they're in a really loose mix.
Yeah. So I have two versions. I have one that last year I decided to be nice to, and I moved it into our succulent mix. And I water, it's about once a week during the winter time. That went down to like 10 days. And then I have another one that I never transplanted out of the nursery container, and it was in a peat. And I, would still water that one the same amount. But I was aware that watching that the peat dry up, I knew if it got so dry. So there's still a little bit of moisture in there, so it wasn't that hydrophobic. But it was growing and it was fine, but it really just, you need to taper your watering based on your soil. That's just always how it goes.
I think that's a good general rule of thumb for any plant, but especially with these more sensitive ones or that are adapted to specific conditions, you have to be much more careful with your watering.
Especially with epiphytes.
There's a lot less leeway and a lot less forgiveness.
Yeah.
If an epiphyte is in sogging wet soil, it's going to rot like almost instantly.
Yeah. I mean, that's why people have difficulties with orchids.
Yeah.
I mean, your persnickety plants that you like to grow, Sean. Just kidding. So not quite as regimented as the poinsettia. People do go, why is my Christmas cactus not blooming? And it does have to do with light.
Yes.
So a lot of plants are adapted to areas where there's day length that triggers them to bloom, along with temperatures.
Yeah.
And you think, okay, it's from the tropics, but it still does vary.
Yes, because they're from northern Brazil, where it's not as wet.
Brazil is a very large country,
Yes.
so there's a big difference in is that latitude? It's up and down, or one of the two?
Sean, I don't need that attitude.
Getting a lot of latitude right
Yeah,
now.
I'm getting a little latitude from you right now. So it's funny because I have buds on my Christmas cactus right now and not blooms. And I won't have blooms for Christmas, even though mine is technically a Thanksgiving cactus. And mine is growing in my plant room, which I haven't changed my lights. So my lights are on for much longer. So I think it's a twofold. I think
it's temperature and light.
It's temperature and light
if
for
it's
sure.
colder, you can get away with
Exactly.
longer day lengths.
Yes.
If it's warmer, you have to really reduce the amount of light that you
And
give
that's
it to
where
get
I'm
it to
at. I
bloom.
don't have a heater in there.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely getting those temperatures below 55, which they need. And then but my timer for my lights are on, so they're not getting those, what I think it's 12 to 16 hours of darkness. Yeah. So I think some people, if they grow them as a houseplant, which is doable, but they run their heater.
Yeah, they run their heater, so temperature is constant, and also day length is like relatively constant because people have like lights on in your house and things, so they just get this constant.
Yeah.
The Christmas cacti are actually pretty good outdoor plants. They can handle cold. They can even handle frost a little bit.
Yeah.
I would be a little careful with like hard freezes, but they're durable things.
They really are.
Yeah, they're really durable.
Some people send me pictures and they've had their Christmas cactus like 50 years.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I've seen plants with like snow on them too.
Yeah.
They can take a lot, which is surprising.
But what I think most people do is they overwater them.
Yes.
So as soon as your stems, because those aren't leaves, their stems start wrinkling, if you know you've watered it within the last 2 weeks, you know it's not underwatered.
Yes.
Unless you're doing the whole I give it a tiny teaspoon, you know, which some people do. Remember, make sure it
flows through
yeah.
the bottom. Yeah.
Yes. Is you're probably overwatering it. But if any part is still firm and you're concerned about the plant dying completely,
Yeah.
it's easy to take cuttings of
It's very easy to take cuttings, and they reroot very easily.
because it's all stem material.
Yep.
So take the healthiest and just stick it in some pumice.
Yeah, just stick it in some pumice, stick it in some regular
Anything.
cactus mix.
Yeah.
They'll root.
Would you even callus that over?
I would,
Okay.
but
That was
It's
that
probably-
was a trick question, Sean, to see if he,
it's probably not necessary with them.
Yeah.
I just wouldn't water it immediately.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then don't put it in the brightest light.
Yeah.
Put it in diffused light. But yeah, so you could do cuttings. I tell people when they think they've killed their Christmas cactus. And also just keep in mind that some people will send me pictures and half of it will look dead and half of it will be alive. Because remember, it's probably multiple plants if you haven't divided it. So you're losing half of one. So go ahead and divide that and keep the other half and pot it up.
The another thing, so if you see the plant wrinkling from the actual stem starts looking wrinkly, wrinkled skin or pruny skin that's been in the water too long, it's probably overwatered and it's rotting.
Mm-hmm.
If it just starts to look flat and desiccated,
Mm-hmm.
that means it's underwatered, but they prefer to be underwatered than overwatered. So if you see it stressed, like reds,
Yeah, I was just about to mention
Yeah.
the reds. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
they get nice, the actual stem itself turns red and purple-ish. With they're beautiful plants, actually.
So the red, though, can also be from too much sun in the
Yes.
summertime.
Yes.
And that's a stress response, just trying to block its chlorophyll so it doesn't photosynthesize and lose water.
Yeah.
Is that because it's a cacti? It's a betulin, right? It's not an anthocyanin then. It's a
Yeah, it's betulin.
betulin. What are in beets? Sean, beets. Good for you. Right. Okay, I think we covered everything on Christmas cactus.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, okay. All right. Let's go to a few more. Cyclamen. Sean, have you ever you know what cyclamen are?
Yeah.
They're not carnivorous.
They're not carnivorous. They're not orchids. So.
I know. But you go to the nurseries and you're just inundated because this is one where you could buy it as a gift plant and grow it inside.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
But
right
they
now.
also sell them just
Outdoors.
for
As an actual plant.
yeah, as an outdoor plant.
Yeah.
And they're actually pretty awesome.
They're awesome plants.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
very pretty.
Why are they awesome, Jean-Luca?
Because they have a giant tuber that can be raised as a caudax.
Could be
I am
raised as a cottage.
Obsessed with caudiciform plants. And it's also a winter growing plant, summer dormant,
Mm-hmm.
falls into all of my categories of good plant. Mediterranean, drought tolerant, and has a caudax.
Okay, so what is a caudax?
So a caudax is a swollen storage organ for water
And starch, though, right?
and starch.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
but
Mainly water.
mainly water.
Okay.
They're a trait that appears in all sorts of different plant families, mostly from drought condition or drought environments like deserts and grasslands and other places like bulbs, a lot of bulbous plants. You could technically call that sort of a caudax, all those are the leaves.
It's a very nice example of conversion evolution.
Yes. A lot of
The best.
Vervelias
Some may
and-
say it's the best example.
No, the best example is carnivory, but I won't go there.
I don't know. I think caudiciform.
Oh.
I think caudax is spread across more genera and families than carnivory.
That's true, but carnivory is more interesting.
This is
To
like
be
I'm
debated.
this is like I'm at work. Your workbenches are right across from each other, and this is what it
Yes.
usually is what's
Carnivores versus succulents.
Yes, exactly. But you guys do come together for terrestrial orchids.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So that's a caudiciform. So you go to the nursery, you buy a cyclamen. You could technically you can have it inside for the holidays. It's
For the
not
holidays,
ideal. So once it's done blooming, once the holidays are done,
Don't throw it out.
Don't throw it out. Call Jean-Luca. Don't throw it out. It can be planted in the ground,
Yes.
except for a few things. You mentioned it's winter growing, true. So it goes summer dormant.
Yes.
And if you give it irrigation during the summer, you have the chance of rotting out that tuber.
Yes.
If you grow it in a pot, you could let it go dormant and then it'll start coming back in the fall if you let it go dry. And I've seen them in gardens where people give them some irrigation
Yeah, they can
and
handle
they're
a
fine.
little
Yeah.
water in the summer and they're fine.
Yeah, as long as it's good
Yeah,
drainage.
As long as it's really good drainage.
Mhm.
And if you live in a place that's cold enough, even in the summer, like if you're really coastal,
Mhm.
they'll grow all year round.
Yeah, that
But-
cooler
Yeah,
temperatures.
But some place in Davis or the Central Valley or anywhere that's
Yeah.
not literally on the coast,
yeah.
only the winter. And you want to let them go dry in the summer.
Where are they? Native to the Mediterranean basin, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, you
Greece,
go...
I think, is
Okay.
like
I was, like
Yeah.
Persia, Greece,
Yeah.
in that area. You go to the nursery and you see just, once again, it's the same thing. For a while, we were seeing quite a variety of the leaves because the leaves could
Yes.
vary a lot. You could get this really nice, I'm not going to say variegation, but venation of the
venation, the
silvery.
silver venation.
Yeah, it's so pretty.
Those are, I think, those are hybrids they've made. And there's a
Mm-hmm.
whole bunch of interesting cyclamen hybrids. And, well, the species are exquisite to me. I think all the hybrids are kind of diluted.
you just mentioned you want to get into growing them.
Yes,
and I
I
could
want to
get on
start
board with
collecting
that.
the cyclamen species because
Yeah.
there's some really beautiful ones. Ones with, instead of that silver venation,
Yeah.
there's ones that have like metallic red venation.
Ooh.
Um,
And some of them are fragrant.
yeah, some of them are fragrant.
So the ones in the nursery sale tend to just go, okay, let's go for the biggest flowers, the showiest red, the showiest white. I like the ones with the smaller, daintier flowers
same.
that are pink, because pink. Yeah. So so that you could grow them in pots.
Yes.
I would recommend, once again, something with pumice. Pumice
they're-
among us.
They grow in rocky areas.
Yeah. Okay. But the key to that is knowing that they're not meant to grow year round. They want to go dormant or at least have good drainage.
Yes.
And they're not meant as a year round indoor
Yes.
plant.
When people like see all their leaves die, a lot
Uh-huh.
of people just assume the cyclamen's dead and they throw it
That's
out.
so sad.
But there's a tuber under there, and usually,
Rescue it.
yeah, it's in my experience, it's actually hard to kill a cyclamen. They're pretty hardy plants, and
That's because you're used to growing succulents and don't overwater.
Yes.
Once again, most people overwater
Yeah.
their plants. But I also agree with you when people, as soon as people see things going dormant,
they think it's dying.
just like Venus
I
flytraps,
was just
right?
going to say it's every year with Venus flytraps. I
Isn't that
hear
crazy?
Sad horror stories. It's going, or it looks like it's dying, so I threw it away. No, it was just dormant. Sorry,
Oh,
you
so
just killed it. You
sad.
actually killed it now.
Wow. Makes you wonder if like someone they love is sleeping and they're like, oh, he's not
he
moving.
must be dead for a
No.
while. Yeah.
That's the Ficus benjamina. As soon as it moves, it drops its leaves inside and doesn't put them on quick. People are like, out you go. I used to say that the Ficus benjamina was like the most like dumped plant in the dump, but now I'm thinking Venus flytraps
It's
might
either
be
Venus
up there.
flytraps or Phalaenopsis because they stop blooming and people are done with
Oh,
it.
the
Yeah.
Phalaenopsis,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, sorry, Sean. Sorry too. I must get you right
it's
there in the
horrible.
heart, right?
It's hard to sleep at night.
Yes. Okay, so that's cyclamen. Relatively, I know they do get mealybugs down in the crown, but that's really outside. They should overcome
Outside,
that.
they're fine because they're winter growers.
Yeah.
Mealybugs aren't active in
Uh-huh.
the winter, and they just grow.
Yeah, we have some growing in the teaching greenhouse, and 2 are absolutely huge and beautiful. Other 2, we're getting too much water, so I had to pull them off irrigation, and they're slowly making their way back. But they're getting like warm temperatures, bright light. So it must be also day length that triggers them. Short days.
Well,
trigger
there's a lot of
them.
plants that under like super ideal conditions. I
Mhm.
wouldn't say ideal because it's not like habitat conditions.
Yeah,
They'll just like grow.
yeah.
I think cyclamens are they're sort of opportunistic, I've found. As long as it's humid enough and
Yeah.
they are wet enough,
And
they
they'll
kind of
grow.
grow.
But I will say the ones I've seen in summer out in the landscape never look that great.
No, they
It's
always
look better in winter. So it's not like, oh, I'm going to plant these and I'm planning to have these
Someplace-
year round in the summer looking really good along this pathway.
no. Someplace like Davis where it gets to be
116.
ridiculous temperatures, they're gonna go totally dormant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They're gonna drop all their leaves. You're
And
not
it-
gonna see them.
And I should say also shade too.
Yes.
Don't put them in full sun at all.
No.
If you're good. But a pot is best.
Yes.
Yes.
And you can expose the tuber. It gets actually pretty
here
big.
Here we go.
They
Expose
can
that
get-
tuber.
yeah.
There's the codex.
Expose that tuber.
When they get old, the tuber can be
Yeah.
like a foot or so in diameter. They're big things.
I know when you found out about that, you were
Yeah.
like, I'm growing this.
Yes.
Yes. It's all about the tuber.
It's all
Not
about the tuber.
About the tuber. Codex.
Codex,
Yeah. What do we call ourselves?
The quadiciforms.
The quadiciforms. Okay. That's bad. All right. But good because I came up with it. All right, there's two more that we want to talk about. Amaryllis, which is actually,
Hypestrum.
yeah, I call it
Not-
hippie-estrum.
Yeah.
Hippie-estrum.
Now there is an actual genus, Amaryllis.
Yes, belladonna.
Yeah.
The naked ladies.
Yeah.
Yes. But we're talking about the ones that you see sold, sadly, as like box sets
Yeah.
or fully blooming at the grocery store section.
Yeah.
Or the flower section at the grocery store, that are bright red generally. Sometimes you see a variegation of them. Most people, I think, just toss those.
Yeah. They can grow just
They
fine.
can grow just fine.
Yeah, you can even put them outside, like in the ground, and
So the natural blooming time for them is actually end of summer.
yes,
So they're once again sort of like triggered to bloom during the holidays because the bright red ones are, of course, Christmas colors. But it's the end of summer that is the time for them to bloom. So say you get one as a gift, it's blooming. Yes, keep it inside, bright window. Same thing goes. Just don't overwater it. They're bulbs, so they really don't need
they really don't need much water.
much
at all.
water at all. As soon as the holidays are over, you can still keep it inside, but the flower's going to die off. And you're going to want to let the flower just die completely down. And then the leaves are going to hang on for a while. What I think tricks people up is if you continuously give it water and keep it inside, it'll keep it as an evergreen.
Yes.
That's not ideal.
No, because it won't trigger them to bloom well.
Exactly. So they need a rest period. They need to take that foliage needs to die down. That's the whole purpose of a bulb. Like you said, for an orchid, fake orchids have fake bulbs, Sean, fake bulbs, pseudo bulbs, a storage unit. It needs to rest, and then it needs some chill. It needs to chill a little bit to trigger it to bloom again. But you were mentioning that some are actually more tropical, so
Yes, there are a whole bunch of tropical hypestrums. There's even epiphytic ones that are from Brazil.
But we're talking about the ones that are, not like that. So, grow it inside, but let the foliage die. As the foliage is dying down, you need to water it less and less. And they're great in pots where you could just sort of put it away, let it get that chill outside, and then they'll emerge on their own. A lot of people's bulbs are afraid, like, if they have them in pots, do I need to start watering them? No, they'll just they'll come out their own.
They'll come up on their own. When you see them come up, start watering them.
Yes, because they have enough water reserve in the bulbs.
Yeah, and when it starts to dry up and die back, just stop watering them.
But they could also be put in the ground.
Yes,
Same thing, though. You don't want it to be a heavy area where it's getting, they're going to be dormant during the winter time. So a good draining. You don't want standing water in the winter, and then they're going to come and do their thing. So really, you could have them. I don't think the flowers are going to last super long in summer if we get 116 degrees. So a little afternoon shade. That's the problem with some of these showy flowers is they're conditioned to like more humidity, and the flowers are just going to die. But, I passed by houses. It was San Jose again, where just like this whole row, and it was like August, and you see all these amaryllis that remind you of Christmas or blooming or hippie-estrum.
Hypestrum.
You're a hypestrum. So, one thing I didn't want to talk about, and I haven't seen them this year. Once again, it was pre-COVID. The waxed bulbs. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, my mom used to buy those.
No.
Give them away. Yeah, I was.
Did you tell her she was
I
performing
was just
plant
like-
abuse?
I was like, why? Why do you do this?
Mom,
It's so-
why do you just rub it in my face abusing plants like this? So they take a bulb, and they're really big bulbs.
Yes.
I mean, they cut the roots off. And apparently I didn't know this, that they then jam something through the middle of them to make them stand up.
Yep.
And then they dip them in hot wax. And then they bloom. So you don't need a container or soil or anything because it's just that wax is holding all that moisture in, and they're forcing them to bloom with what's in there. But you can't get them to regrow
No,
because they're
dead.
covered in wax and the roots have been
Roots can't
taken
go
off,
through.
and you have
Yeah.
a rod stuck through. That would be like just torture now. Go and work. So yeah, don't buy those. I think that's ended.
Yeah.
But yeah. Okay. Last one we got to talk about is living Christmas trees. Anyone? Your thoughts? Good
no.
idea, bad idea, saving the planet, not saving the planet.
It's just really hard to grow them.
Yeah.
It's
indoors.
Gonna take a while, yeah.
So
It doesn't. They don't grow indoors because they're all
So they don't grow. Okay, so they can grow indoors. So when you go buy a living Christmas tree, people are like, "Oh, I don't want to cut a tree down. I want to, get a living Christmas tree, then I can plant it." The problem being is most of the species are not species that could grow for us here.
Yes.
So people are listening to different zones, sure. But Zone 9, Central Valley, it is the key is too dry and hot. In the summer.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the cool temperatures too. Like we don't get that.
No.
It's cool enough, but it's that dry, hot summer that is just going to kill them. So most of the potted plants that look really cute when they're young and could be trimmed are like the picea, the spruce.
Yeah.
There's no spruce growing in Central Valley.
If you live in Lake Tahoe, yes.
Yes.
Davis, no.
No. And then also like the false cypress one too. It'll just die a slow or quick death. So if you find them that's like a true or like redwood, or pines, but generally you don't see them pines because they don't have that cute shape when they're younger that they could trim.
Norfolk pines, I think, are the
Okay.
exception.
Yes.
They kind of look cute. They have the little.
They're very cute.
Yeah, the needles kind of feel like plastic.
So where are they from? They're from like almost like tropical like New Zealand area, right?
It's some random
Norfolk.
Island. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
they're
off,
from
it's off the coast of New Zealand or Australia.
Exactly.
Or something, yeah.
So they do. We have 2 at work growing in a shade house. So in the summer, they're getting shade. They get good water. That's the thing is they don't like hard, heavy mineral water. And where we live in Davis, other people, if you have good water, it's better. And also if you are along the coast and it doesn't freeze, because they also don't like the cold. Ours are surviving.
They can survive frost. They just don't grow very well in very cold conditions.
Yeah, they don't want continuous exposure. They'll take it. But it's also good protected. But mainly it's that afternoon sun. And they don't do well.
burn.
They don't do well as a houseplant though for very long because it's too
No.
dry inside. So
They're
yeah,
tropical.
Yeah,
They're
exactly.
but from all of the fake or living Christmas trees
Uh-huh.
I've seen,
You
those
think
are
that's the best?
That's your highest
Yeah.
chance of survival in
Yeah.
a household.
Yes,
condition.
inside, and then obviously keep it away from heater vents.
Yes.
Keep it moist, but then ideally you'd move it outside.
Yes.
A
A lot of people now
shame.
that they've the whole aeroid craze has made a lot of people good at growing tropical
Mm-hmm.
things. If you can grow, a nice monstera inside, you probably have the conditions that are okay for.
You just insulted the aeroid people who aren't good at growing tropicals who are still trying. So now that a lot of aeroid people are good at growing, there's some aeroid people. I'm still not good. Damn. But yeah, I would say, yeah, you're right. But I haven't seen a single one for sale this year.
No.
I must say, though, I don't get out much. Maybe if I went to a larger nursery. But, local.
Sean and I never go to large regular nurseries either.
Yeah,
So
you guys only go to specialty nurseries. Yeah.
we're plant snobs.
Well, I just don't get out much. I'm like a
Also fair.
agoraphobic or something or antisocial. So no, but I remember seeing them at the local nursery. So you're right. That is one, or a pine if you could find them, but stay away from if you don't want to see a plant die a slow death, don't
Don't get a
one.
spruce.
No, don't get a spruce, or most of the living trees. Yeah. So any others that were, I think those are it, unless there's some weird new one. I wonder when we're gonna have a new
Christmas
holiday
thing?
plant. Yeah, we got to start coming up with. No, it can't be a.
Your little tuberous drosera.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. If
They
you
come with
guys-
the ornaments already attached to them, though. The little sparkly.
That is
sleeve.
true.
Yeah, that's great.
That is true.
You have a
Yeah.
scrambling tuberous
So,
drosera.
Sean, explain to us what your Christmas drosera looks like.
Yeah, your Christmas.
So
drosera.
And
there's
what
a
it does.
There's a group of sundews, the little sticky carnivorous plants from Australia, and it's a climate similar to ours, Mediterranean like climate. It's very hot and dry in the summer, and then it's relatively moderate temperature wise, and it's very wet in the winter. So in the summer they die down to a tuber, and they ride out the hot season underground, and then when the first rains of fall start coming, they come up and they grow amongst a lot of them grow amongst other small shrubby plants.
Okay.
So they'll make a climbing vine with little sticky leaf pads that are filled with carnivorous tentacles, and they in the sunlight they glisten. They look like a little ornament, and it's really adorable.
Oh,
And I
until
always
they get
have-
covered with bugs.
until they get covered with bugs.
And
yeah.
then they
It's
just
a
look
different
like...
type of ornament.
yeah.
Is it? You're right. Maybe for those who don't like sparkly ornaments, you're like, I like my ornaments covered in dead insects.
There's
Oh,
something
this is
for everyone,
perfect.
yeah.
Okay, so Gianluca, what would be your new Christmas plant if you could? Oh, so many.
I've never really thought about this because I don't really. Oh, Dalbenia aurea.
Of course. Okay.
It's a South African bulb.
Yeah. Okay.
That blooms sort of around this time. It's a little early, I guess. But they have just this beautiful, like, big red flower and green leaves. And
I think it's more like an orangey red.
no, there's two different forms.
An orangey red and a red.
There's aurea coccineus,
Oh.
and then
Okay.
aurea aurea.
Okay.
One's like really red and one's
Yeah.
yellow.
Okay. All right. Because I'm
And
particular
there's
about
hybrids
my
of the
reds.
two that are like orangey.
Okay.
But there's one that's really, really red.
Okay. So that's your new. Let's get it on the
except
market.
I don't think
Let's get
anyone would be able to
people
grow that. It's a super hard plant to grow.
Remember, people are just going to throw them in the compost bin.
Yeah, it's also
You
like-
only need it to look good for like a few weeks.
Please don't throw any tuberous trash away. That would actually make me very sad.
Yeah.
You guys wouldn't let anyone buy them
No,
unless
we
you gave them
wouldn't.
a whole tutorial, a signed document saying once this is done, you're going to do this. If you can't take care of this plant after the holidays, return it to me. Give up custody of it. Send me a video each week of what you're doing.
It
Yeah.
also, there's no way it could survive indoors. It's
Okay.
totally an outdoor plant.
Okay, so that one, forget that one. What about your Drosser? Can it survive indoors at least for the holidays?
Oh yeah, I grow them under LED lights
Okay.
inside.
Oh,
And then-
LED.
yeah.
We're
What you have
gonna-
to do is
Not
just
a
make
windowsill.
a giant, elaborate grow tent that's climate controlled, and you spend thousands of dollars on it, and then you can do it. It's easy. Yeah.
Good.
At least my things are easier. Just stick them outside in the rain and they're fine. But
I did grow them outside in SoCal, but
that's so
Now-
Santa
that's
Barbara is
cheating.
very different.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's cheating.
It's
Growing
cheating.
any plants in
It is
SoCal
cheating, and
is
it's awesome.
cheating.
You didn't
Yeah.
have to do anything.
Yeah.
You can grow Highland Nepenthes outside.
Okay, well, I'm going to stop you guys from coming up with more holiday plants that no one could grow. That could be your next. Be like holiday plants that no one could grow with Gianluca and Sean. Sean, what should we tell people they should grow, which they can't because they're going to kill it right away? Bah humbug. Scrooge to you. All right. If I'm missing anything, feel free to email me or let me know on social media. Follow me at Marlene the Plant Lady on Instagram and Facebook. And of course, follow, rate, and review this podcast and tell a friend. And Sean, would you like to give your Instagram?
It's SHAWN_SHUMAKER.
Because that's Sean, the other Sean, Shoemaker, the other Shoemaker. Not that people could spell your name.
No one spells
totally
my name
different,
right.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, and that's on Instagram.
That's on Instagram.
Okay, and Gianluca.
And mine is Marinsect_Gianluca, which is MARINSECT_GIANLUCA.
I feel bad. I don't have an underscore. I feel left out.
That's what the cool kids have.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, sorry. I got to get a new one. Okay, so those are your Instagram. No TikToks.
No.
No, that's not allowed.
Not cool enough.
No. No, actually, you're too old, Sean.
I'm too old. Yeah. Where's my rascal?
All right. Until next time, everyone, happy gardening.